So what do we do when we have parental alienation happen? And this happens from divorce and custody cases all the time with men and women. We were just talking about it on our call. We have 4 calls a week, and actually we're adding a 5th one that is center pointed around divorce and custody and how men and women can learn how to use the law. And I want to talk about this because if you have a false claim, if you have a parent taking the kids away from you, you have rights. You need to learn how to assert them. It's different in every single state. We work with men and women from every single state. We give advice, we're coaches, we'll tell you how to work with your lawyers, we'll help you organize your material, but that is huge. That's what we're going to talk about today. And before we start, I just want to hammer this into you. Men, you have been sold a disservice by men's rights, fathers' rights, the red pill, all these different men's rights groups, because for years you have been told and it has been recognized that the courts are unfair. And not a single one of those coaches, experts, geniuses, people who say they bleed for you has ever sat in a courtroom to figure out how the court works, has ever worked with an attorney on how these things work, and put something together concise for men and, in this case, women, so that you can know how to defend yourself in courts in a system that is unfair. I get it, it's unfair. But that doesn't mean you fight for your image and what it means to be a man and be tough and get it back and complain and blame. It means you fight for your kids and you learn how to do it legally. That's what I did. I lost in one of the biggest ways, came back to win it, and have now gone on to teach thousands of men side by side with them, carried them through their court cases, and taught them how to see the law in whatever state they're in. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a coach. I help you through it. I'll teach you how to organize your content, your material, to put in front of an attorney so that they can do their job. I'll show you how to pick the right attorney. If you screwed up and got the wrong attorney, I'll show you how to find the right one. It's a hard thing. It's not easy, but the majority of the cases that come to us, man, we do well. And these are protective orders, custody agreements, false abuse claims, false sex abuse claims, false domestic violence claims. We beat them. I want to show you how to do that. And you need to learn how to do that. You need to stop complaining. This is how we become better parents. This is how we become better fathers, better mothers. And this is how we can lead our family even when our family is breaking apart. It's time to put on your thinking caps. It's time to do the right thing as men. And it's time to start learning. So let's get to this lesson. And one more thing, guys, there is a little button there to buy me coffee. It's just another way to support the channel, which is really important. All this stuff, takes a lot. My hobby is photo and video. I love it, man. I love doing it. And it's so cool. And I live a great life and I'm so thankful for it. But this channel is hard to maintain and it helps motivate me. The best way to support me is to sign up for my courses. But if that's not for you and you get something out of this, man, click that button. Send a few bucks my way. I really appreciate it. And it helps me out massively to keep creating this content, talk to different attorneys, talk to different therapists, work with different legislation, all that sort of stuff to help out so that we can, man, have a better future and have a justice system that works. Okay, folks, Steve Maeda here. We are on our Rising Man call. It's Friday. It is the 24th of February when we're recording this 2023. And it is just nuts. One of the things that I want to tell at least men out there, but also women who are watching this who want to learn how to protect their kids, or women who don't want to make the mistake and abuse your kids by keeping the fathers away, or men, vice versa, all this sort of stuff. Look, the information out there about divorce and custody, especially for men, has been so harmful. I'm super hypercritical of it. I've been critical of it since 2016, about the red pill, about men's rights activists, about all these different groups. And the reason for that is I have lost bigger than most of you guys in terms of false abuse claims. I also came back to beat it. I learned how the courts worked for I don't know how many years, at least since I've seen the red pill really take off. So I get it. The court systems are unfair. They do not treat things in a favorable way towards men. But if you know what to do, and if you're a man, and you want to learn how to fight, you need to learn how to fight. I did it. I teach guys over and over again in my courses. This year alone in 2023, we just had a guy beat 3 charges because he put in the work. He did the right things. It could have gone wrong in so many ways. He was prepared in all the different variables of how judges take it, other lawyers take it, witness testimonies flaw things, judges cutting out different pieces of evidence. When you learn how to prepare yourself, when you learn how to go into a courtroom properly, you can beat false claims. You can beat this horrific thing of your kids being coached, lied to, parental alienation, and so on. And I really want to talk about it. What I've seen from the red pill, what I've seen from men's rights is horrific. Never going into a courtroom and learning how they work, never interviewing lawyers, never learning the system, never working with men on their cases, but only teaching them how to be victims, how to say it doesn't work and give up. I get it. It's stacked against you. I got screwed really bad. I didn't see my kids for 5 years. I wore the crown of a false claim of being a child abuser, which is a horrible thing to wear for 8 years. I served a full sentence for that, which wasn't 8 years of jail time. It was a short amount of jail time. It was a ton of community service. It was probation. It was all sorts of trash talking on me and all this sort of stuff. But man, I served it and then I beat it. I want to show you how to do that. And there's proof of it too, which I show all the time. When we get to things like parental alienation, it causes great damage to your kids. So if you're somebody that's talking trash on your spouse, you got to stop. If you're trying to turn the kids against your ex, you got to stop. It doesn't work that way. She or he may have done horrible things, but they're going to be in your child's life. And for them to hate their father or mother is going to cause damage to them massively throughout their entire life. How they make relationships, how they trust people, how they trust you, how they find out the truth about the situation, which is going to come out years down the road. It's going to imprint just a terrible way in the way they have attachments and the way they make decisions and their self-image and their self-esteem. Do not do it. It's not cool. It's not something that love can beat. Or if you love them just a little bit more, they can hate their father or mother. No, it doesn't work that way. But if you're on the receiving end of this, you have to learn how to defend it. And you have to stop it legally. So there's a couple things that I want to cover really quick that are super important in all of this that we talked about on our call just now with the guys. And well, this was not a co-ed call, but we also have those co-ed calls too, and calls individually and specific for women as well. But you have to be able to stop it legally, and you have to gain the most amount of power. And this is important. We hear about power a lot when we're dealing with, the image and identity of being a man and how that's going to help us with our dating, our sense of self, and so on. But what I'm talking about here is legal power. And legal power is really, really important to determine and get because it might mean something else. So in this particular situation, a father had gained a lot of power in a legal case, throwing out or being proved innocent, cleared of all charges of abuse, of domestic violence, all these different things. That's step one. And so in his case, he had to first defend that, and then he has to go into a custody case. So they're two separate things. Guys, girls, you have to learn how the law works, okay? If you walk into a courtroom and you're defending domestic violence, you're defending child abuse, you have to realize that that is not your custody case. But if you lose that case, you will almost inevitably have no custody case. They are separate, but for the most part, if you get a protective order put on you, your custody goes to the other side. And if both of you have abuse protective orders put on you, your child goes into foster care or with a relative, and that is not good. That is terrible. You do not want the state, you do not want the government to be raising your kids. You especially don't want them to have to decide that you're an unfit parent. So we got to learn how to defend that. So step one, if you're going through this and you have false claims against you, you have to learn how to defend that. How we defend that is we specifically have to understand what the law states. It's not what your aunt says. It's not what you say. It is not what friends and family say. It's not what the overall opinion is. It's not how she lied to you. It is what is actually said, what is actually done. So if you are said to have hit that child, hurt that child in some sort of ways, and that is filed against you, you have to learn how to defend it. So what happens is a lot of people say, well, she's a liar, she did this, and you don't understand. She goes out with other guys, girls, blah, 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 blah. Or he does this, he's an alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. Does that affect your case? Does that defend you? Okay, so first, step one, you have to defend yourself. How do I prove that I did not harm this child? How do I prove that this person is taking away the kids from me? How do I prove that I've made attempts to see my children and he or she has not let me? And then how is that affecting the child? How is that showing good parenting? So we have to start there with proving, disproving, okay? Very, very important. So if we don't start there, we usually gunk up the courts, whoever's in charge of it, whether it's a judge in a hearing or it's through mediation, but most likely this would count for a hearing. We don't want to make it impossible for that judge to understand. Okay. If we make it impossible for that judge to understand, that judge is then put in a point or a place where they have to be reactive. Okay. One side is saying a bunch of stuff. One side is bringing up the wrong witnesses. One side is totally not acknowledging what is on the paper of what this hearing is about. And they're ignoring it. So then the judge has to react. That judge, more than likely, is going to react with whatever is just going to be safest. The court, both sides, could not determine how to properly present this case because of disorganization. So we're just going to err on the side of caution. If you get any delay in your case, in your hearing, it's going to get booked. The courts are backed up in almost every state in the United States right now. It's going to take another 3, 2, 6 months, maybe year in order to get in front of a judge again. And that whole time, you will not have a court order that is in your favor to see your children. That means if there's any other manipulation having taken place, it's going to take place more. Your child's going to get lied to. Your child's also going to say that we went to court and the judge ruled that it would be safer for you to stay with me for 6 more months. You don't want that. In addition to that, if a parent is with a child for 6 months extra after taking that child away for 2 months, 3 months, a year, whatever it is, and you're finally making it to court and you mess up this situation, guess what happens? Guess what happens? A status quo is set, a precedent has been set where that child just has a normal life, even as abnormal as it might be being manipulated and lied to, but a normal life, going to school, waking up every day in the same home, in the same bed, that yes, a manipulative person has run, but it makes it that much harder for a judge 6 months later, 3 months later, whatever it is, to go, you know what? Let's just put it back in 50-50. So the longer you delay your case, the more you screw up every shot you have in front of a judge that's trying to be able to have an ecosystem where they can hear all the evidence properly in a case. The more you screw that up, the longer you wait, meaning the less of a chance you have to have actual 50-50 custody, 60-40 custody, weekends, whatever. And it's easier for then a judge to rule on supervised visitation, which means you pay a sheriff or somebody who's safe to witness you watch that child for 2-4 hours in a controlled room. You're in front of another person with your kids. You have to be supervised and policed. It's horrible. You don't want that. So it's very important that you learn how to argue your case properly. Now, if you're going pro se, that means without an attorney and you're going just representing yourself, more than likely you're going to make mistakes. Now, I almost always say this in all of my videos. I usually say it at the end. Our groups are meant to do this. If you join our groups, there's different options, but if you sign up just for the Rising Man or if you're a woman at the entry-level group for divorce and custody, we will help you go through your case. We have lots of resources for that. There's also another tier that we offer where you can give us all of your evidence, all of your court records. You can tell us your story, all that sort of stuff, and we'll organize it for you so that you can either present it to your attorney or how you would most likely present it to a judge. This gets tricky because we're only coaching, we're not attorneys, and we're not in your state and county. But man, we do this over and over again for guys in our group for 4 years. We've done this. And we do good work. We help guys win. And that's the other thing too. The myth of that the courts are unfair. Yes, they are unfair. But if you're just going in as a victim and you don't know how to prepare and you haven't done your due diligence and you want to listen to a bunch of red pill stuff or MGTOW stuff or father's rights stuff that doesn't tell you how to specifically do this, you are definitely going to get screwed. So our groups offer a good service for this to sort through all of this. The next thing that you got to do is you have to understand, once you have proven or disproven and made that case, and you want that to be as strong as possible, then you can start moving into this phase. And now sometimes these get married together, but you want to discredit your witness. Now, this was huge in my case in discrediting my ex as a witness when she tried to make false claims against me. And it was kind of easy to do. We did that through depositions. So before we went to a hearing, we wanted to get as much evidence as possible. And that's what I did. So in the deposition, we really made it obvious that she was lying under oath many times at the expense of our kids' safety. she would lie over and over again and then defend different things that were abusive, which she didn't know. And it was really actually sad to see. But when we do that, we want to do that to make any of her testimony just irrelevant in the court.
By lying under oath today, all day long, based on your lies, you could lose your children just for the simple fact that you've been lying all day.
If your spouse can be discredited as a witness, that is huge. That doesn't mean, so if we just start out with discrediting them as a witness first, we also have to have a play that is absolute, that proves that we did not do any abuse or disproves any claims of abuse. Those two things have to happen. Well, that first thing has to happen of the proof. We have to have that. If we can discredit a witness, that doesn't mean that we disprove a claim that they made. Once the state starts investigating a claim, it has to be investigated, right? So we have to disprove that claim. If we can, on top of that, discredit a witness, man, it is amazing. That is good because if that gets set, if we can do that under oath in a court document, like a deposition or in a hearing, in some sort of under oath on the record testimony, we can prove that this witness is willing to lie under oath, willing to disrespect the courts, and willing to do it at the expense of their own kids to save face or whatever different things. And of course, if they admit to abuse on their side, which is what my ex did, and implicate all these other things that would not be good for her to step forward in our case, that is even better. So we want to be able to do that, okay? So this is step 2 in this process. Very, very big. The third part that we want to get when we're structuring all of this out is we also want to get the most amount of power, which I touched on before. Now, when we get the most amount of power, we want a judge to rule in our favor in the best way. Now, this is tricky, and there's many videos that I could make about this, but in my case, some of the advice that was given to me, and in some ways I wish I would have taken it, in some ways I did take it, and I'll tell you the difference here, is I wish I would have gotten full custody of my kids and then allowed their mother to be the mother. So that means a judge and a court on paper in a court order rules that I have full custody. And what I could have done is I could have gotten a protective order on her. Now, protective orders are tricky. I could have gotten a temporary one and then talked to the district attorney, because once a protective order comes into play, then CPS comes into play. It's a case out of my control, but I am influential in it. But if that protective order was set, a CPS investigation starts, perhaps a whole separate case on child abuse starts, maybe not, then I have ultimate power in a case. Now, I could influence whoever's in charge of that other side, whether it's the district attorney or CPS. I could say, you know what, let's just drop it. They may or may not disagree with me. If the children are in danger, they're not going to agree with me. They're going to keep going. So that's a big risk. In some ways, I wished I would have done that because that would have given me more power. Now, I don't want to take my kids away from their mother, and I don't think you should have the intent to take kids away from the other parent. But if you can be good, if you can have wisdom, if you can navigate things, if you have to step up and be a leader, that's really important. When you can set it on paper, that is huge, huge. And it's very hard to reverse ever a judge's decision. Now, that advice was given to me because there were these things really happening in my situation, and my attorney knew it, and other attorneys who were advising on the case knew it, and they said that that was an option. I declined from that. What I wanted to do was use the deposition footage, which was pretty overwhelming. It would guarantee that if we went to a hearing and any of that stuff came out or went to a trial, there would be really no doubt that I would win. But instead, what I wanted to do is just go for a settlement and use that as leverage and the power that I needed. The problem with that, and one of the problems that we run into in our groups where guys do that, because we're nice, we don't want to hurt this person, we don't want to torture them. They may have the intent to ruin our lives, but we may not want to go through with that on our end. The problem with that is that the story in their head, the story that they tell their friends, was that they went to court, they're a great mother, they're a great father, they're all this stuff, and it just went out bad, and they're going to do whatever they want, and they're still angry. The difference is that if a court ruled them as a criminal or a potential abuser, man, that puts the brakes on people pretty big. When that happened to me, even though it was false, it was like, whoa, this is real. I have to take this stuff seriously. I am not ever going to fuck this up again. And when that happens, people get humbled really quick. Now, so is this right? Is a tool of humility? Now, in my case, abuse was really happening, black and white. I'm glad that it stopped. I'm glad that in the deposition that served its purpose, but a little bit more power would have done some good to not have to deal with these small things that no court's going to entertain. Like I go to pick up the kids, they're not there. You know, she may say like, oh, well, they're doing this, you know, whatever. We're just going, or, you know, we're going to have to bypass the court order this weekend. Now I can call, I can make a claim, but what judge is going to want to waste their time with that? They're going to want to have the court be respected with real problems happening in family law. So I have to wait then for 10 or maybe 5 or another big thing to come up before I actually entertain that in court. If I just go to court based on 1 or 2 times alone, it's just going to be seen as wasting time. It's a waste of money. It costs $7,000 just for that appearance and for an attorney to look over it. It's just not a worth it thing. So we have to be aware that power is good. That power is a good thing. We're not having power to abuse somebody. We're not having power to hurt somebody, but because somebody has attacked us, they've had malicious intent to put a false claim against us that will ruin our lives, put us in jail, destroy our relationships with our kids. I think, and it depends on your situation, it's for you to think about, but I think, and what I advise guys is to really chart out, look at their history, look at what this means. Look at how much power this could get. Can you be a good person with this? Can you use that as leverage? And so that's a really important thing to think about. If you have that, it helps out massively. The other things that you got to learn about when you're going into a court case, when you're trying to defend these things as well, is that you want to have everything as organized for your attorney as possible. You don't want to lie to them. You don't want them to be blindsided in court. You don't want them to be embarrassed. You want them to be motivated to work on your case. And so because of that, like I said, we chart all this stuff out for you. So if you're a man or a woman, you can look at the links down below. If you want to join the women's group for this, we'll help you chart it out. At the entry level point, we also have a community of people who have huge amounts of experience. Like I said, this year we had a guy just yesterday get 3 things dropped. We had a guy in December who it was the worst of the worst false claims being put against him. Didn't get to see his kids for a huge amount of time. Get all those dropped, reversed, get it that it was admitted that it was coached on the other side, or get a testimony saying from the forensic psychologist to say these different things. Very, very, very powerful stuff. In addition to that, we have guys that get 50-50 in the state of Texas. That's very difficult, but it's in many states. The reason why it's difficult in Texas is it does get awarded, but it has to be agreed upon outside of court. That's difficult because then you usually have to have leverage for a mom to concede to that. So a judge won't award, he'll sign off on 50-50, or he or she will sign off on 50-50. But if it's put in front of them for them to make a decision, it will either be standard or expanded standard, or, uphold a protective order or something like that. They won't just give 50-50. It has to be decided outside of court. So that's tricky. There usually has to be leverage for that. We get this all the time, over and over again. We have literally experienced the best 90 days, 3 months. So December, January, February, we've had guys rocket in court. Also women too, being able to just get what they deserved in terms of divorce and custody, or mainly with custody, without having a lot of what you would think would be necessary on their side. We do that through our groups, through coaching, our content, our material, but most importantly, helping you organize your different evidence, what actually matters in this, and getting it in front of an attorney so that they can do their job the best way. We also coach people on many things in terms of how to switch an attorney, how to find the right attorney. What do you need to do if your attorney made a bunch of mistakes and you just got, you're walking an uphill battle, which you don't ever want to be in, but this happens oftentimes in front of a judge, meaning that they've already had a protective order put on you. What do we do to reverse those things? It takes time. It's really, really hard. Do not have that happen, but this is a success for us many times over. This is something which is very important for men to learn. I don't want you to be weak. I don't want women to be weak. I want you to walk into a courtroom prepared. I want you to be able to get what is fair. I want you to make it as easy as possible for the justice system to serve justice. And if we just say we're victims and it's all screwed, yeah, man, it's broken. It's totally screwed up. But that doesn't mean that you just need to quit and give up. You don't need to fight for your image as a man. You don't need to fight for your image as a woman and post stupid stuff on Instagram and self-help quotes and all these different things and show how strong you are and powerful you are and these types of things. You want to fight for your kids, and you want to learn how to do that. Really, really do that. And I'm sad that more people aren't doing that for other people out there, for this huge, huge bleeding hole in our legal system that needs a lot of help. In every state that has come to us of men or women that needed advice, in every state, in all 50 states in the US, that has come to us for help, we've been able to offer a good service for that. So I really want to give you guys faith in doing that. If you don't want my services, that's fine, but educate yourself in the legal system. Do not be stupid and walk into this. You can win. You can do this. It is a key and a fundamental tenet to being a good father or mother and having a good life post-divorce and custody. That is huge. That is what we do. And there is no compromise in that. All right. Thanks for watching.